All right, so you're here because you want to learn how to solve any physics problem, or really a problem from across any subject. So I essentially created this tool called Phi, and Phi can be found at nerd-notes.com. And you simply hover over the Learning Hub, and Phi is this AI problem solver. Now, it's a little bit more than AI, as I'll get to in just a second, and it's actually way better than GPT in my opinion, and again, you'll see why. Phi is also integrated into UBQ, and so for those of you who don't use Nerd Notes on a regular basis to study for physics, UBQ is essentially a question bank for physics questions that often show up on tests, and so usually students that use UBQ have a higher chance of getting a better score. And so Phi is directly integrated, that solver is directly integrated into that. And so I'll show you that in just a second. But what I want to show you right now is the AI problem solving interface. And so if you just click on that, you'll be taken to a page that looks something like this. And so for right now, I'm just going to hide these suggestions. So that way we can actually talk to Phi and get some questions graded or solved. And so as you just heard me say, Phi can actually do pretty much everything. It can grade, it can solve, it can explain it. You just need to tell it what to do, at least when it comes to this interface. So let's kind of just demo this really quickly just to see how it works. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to upload an image of this pendulum looking contraption here. And so I essentially just want to tell it to find maybe the speed, the velocity at the bottom of the arc. So maybe I can put find the velocity of the mass at the lowest point in the arc. Okay, so that's all I got to do, and I just hit send. Now, if you want, you can maybe ask it for something more specific. You can say, maybe you can actually upload another picture of maybe a partial bit of your working, and then ask it to do the rest of it for you, or tell you where you went wrong, or pretty much anything. So the sky is the limit. You can ask Phi to do anything. So we're gonna hit send. Phi does take a few seconds to sort of solve the questions. It's not instantaneous. We're not there just yet. So do give it a few seconds. The fastest it usually has taken is around 15 seconds. The longest it's ever taken is around 30 seconds. So it's not very slow, but it's also not very fast. Now, while we're waiting, I do want to explain the fact that Phi actually learns from you. So yes, it teaches you, but it also learns from you as well. And it learns your learning style. It learns what you understand better, and it does it based off the questions you ask. So for something like this, I clearly do not know maybe how to use conservation of energy. So it will recognize that, and maybe it will spend a little bit more time explaining conservation and the principles behind it. And then in the next question, let's just say I do get that, maybe get that principle right, then it's gonna learn and recognize the fact that, okay, well, he's got it right this time, so I don't need to mention it again. And so it's continuously learning from you. And so the more you do and the more you solve with it, the better it will become at answering questions specifically for you. So let's take a look at what it did in this problem. Let's just see if all the steps are right. So I do teach physics, so hopefully I can quickly see if it's right or wrong. And so the first thing I see that it's solving for height, so that's good. It wants to find the height it's at. And then the second thing it's doing is it's actually applying the conservation of energy. I like how it's actually highlighting each step and going step by step. It makes it pretty easy to follow. It actually did not highlight this step. So as you can see, it is still a little bit glitchy, so it's not perfect, but it's getting there. And so step 3 is applying the conservation of energy very clearly. And then step 4 is just solving, or I guess plugging the numbers in. And then step 5 is just computing the final speed, which is about 2.46 seconds, and that looks to be about right. So that's just a quick demo on how to use the actual chat interface if you just want to upload your own question. And again, this works really good for physics because it's trained on physics data sets. But if you want to use it for chemistry or geometry or algebra, whatever it happens to be, feel free to do so and see how it works out. I haven't tested it to that extent, but if you guys want to try it out, feel free to do so. Now, there's this other part of Nerd Notes that we call UBQ, and UBQ is just a bank of questions. And so let's go and check it out. So as I mentioned, Phi is directly integrated into UBQ. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick any random question. And you can really just go through the filters. So right now I just selected vectors and kinematics. This is unit 1 of AP Physics. And even if you're not an AP Physics student, if you're a honor student or even a college level student, you can still use this. And so mostly all the units are going to be the same across most physics curriculums. And so you can go to basically filter it out by unit and by type of question. So I have it set to these. All right, so I already have a question pulled up here. The question itself doesn't matter too much. This question in particular is an FRQ, so this one's a little bit more nuanced. FRQ is a free response question. Typically, it's a written response, so this is something you would actually have to type a lengthy response out or maybe write it out on paper, as the name suggests, so written responses. And so that said, you can actually, what you can do and what I like doing is I actually like writing my answers on my iPad and then just taking a screenshot and then giving it to Phi. And so again, the question doesn't matter. I just picked a random question. I solved part A and part B. I actually did part B incorrectly just to see if it would catch it. And so let's go ahead and actually try if it does. And so I'm going to actually just grade part A for right now. So you can actually, this is a drop down. I feel like a lot of people miss this part right here. You can actually select which part you want it to grade. So if you just want to focus on part A, then you can do that. If you wanted to do the whole FRQ, then you can also do that. And so let's go ahead and upload that image. So part A, and again, just to show you my working here, this is what it looks like. Again, it's not the neatest handwriting. I'm just showing literally how I solved it. And we're gonna go ahead and give it to Phi to see if it can recognize my handwriting, which it should be able to, and then give me some feedback as to whether I did it right or wrong. Now, I believe I got this question right, so let's see if it agrees with me. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit send and let it do its thing. Now, while it's working, I do want to mention a few things. You can also bookmark questions that you maybe have had a difficult time doing, or you couldn't quite understand it just yet, so you want to come back to it. So you can do that. The other thing you can do is you can mark it as complete. So if you know for certain that maybe this question is something that you definitely know, you don't want to do it again, then you can just mark it as complete. Now, what that does is essentially when you go to the question bank, it will show you. Now, none of these actually show you because I haven't completed any of them, but it would typically show you a little check mark. So that way, as you're scrolling through these, or also a little bookmark button to let you know it's been bookmarked or completed. So as you're scrolling, you can basically at a glance see which ones you've completed or bookmarked. So that way you don't have to redo them. All right, so going back to the question now, okay, it's given us a response. So it says you've received full marks, 4 out of 4 points. So that's great. And so again, it's using this grading scale right here that was given in the problem. And so this is 4 points. This is exactly how maybe a College Board FRQ would be scored. So it uses the same sort of criteria. Okay, so taking a look at the feedback, you guys can pause the video and maybe read it. It lists out the steps that we did, and it matches with the suggested answer, which should be the answer in the answer key. So show answer. And so, yeah, that is the answer in the answer key. So sometimes it does use the suggested answer if there's one given, and if there's none, it will still completely calculate it from scratch, and it will give you an explanation on how to do it if you got it wrong. So that was for part A. Let's go ahead and do part B. Notice how it didn't even bother grading part B because you selected part A, not part B. So now let's go and do part B, and let's go and give it the image here. And so again, just to show you this image as well, this image is completely just screenshot it from my iPad. So I didn't do anything fancy. Again, not the cleanest handwriting. And I'm just going to give it to it. And I intentionally did it incorrectly just to see what it's going to say. So let's go ahead and actually hit send and wait for it to complete. All right, so here's the response. It took about 15-ish seconds to grade that, and it says that it's incorrect, which is correct. So that's a correct statement. You've stated that the initial time required to double the speed is simply twice the initial time, which is 2.21 seconds. So it goes on to explain why it's wrong, and so yeah, it's gonna ask you to basically try again. All right, so that's the demo. Hopefully that was somewhat helpful. Again, you can use this you can use UBQ specifically for physics problems. And if you have more than just physics problems, you can also just use just the regular chat interface for Phi. And again, you can find all of this for free at nerd-notes.com. I'll have it linked in the description so that way you guys can check it out. All right, take care, guys.